All right, we're here with Tristan Tritt. What's happening?
Man, I'm just happy to be out here and finally happy to meet you, man.
Yeah, we were just talking. I've seen you and your dad like a lot of my stuff, and
Yes,
I appreciate the support and y'all's opinions on country music and where it's going and where it should be. We were just talking about that a little bit off camera, but I'd like to talk about it on camera too. What your thoughts are on what's going on in the country music space today?
You know, as someone who's kind of been on the fence of being either a rock artist or in the southern rock world, I don't have a lot to say about it. But as someone who's grown up in the country music world, just as the child of someone who did it for a living or does it for a living, I definitely have my opinions based off of just how much things have changed for good or for worse. I think the independence of having the ability to put out music for yourself creates a lot of diversity in the best sense when it comes to artists that really wouldn't have the opportunity beforehand because they weren't commercial enough.
Right.
You've got guys like Charlie Crockett and Stephen Wilson Jr. and stuff like that are popping up and just killing the game. Zach Top, where if it weren't for the internet now, they probably wouldn't have had the same momentum going behind them simply because they sound nothing like what Nashville has on the radio at this point.
Yeah.
So the country music world, just based off of what I've seen and what I've been told since I was a kid, it always has its ups and downs. But I think right now we're in the beginning of a renaissance.
I think so too.
Really authentic artists that are just, they know who they are. And if there's one thing that I know about Nashville, and I have this love-hate relationship with this city in a lot of ways. I think it's a beautiful city of people coming together, and when you mix it in the right way, you can really create something special. But there's also a lot of carbon copy manufacturing kind of almost big business side to the music, which kind of takes away the magic for me.
Yeah.
But I think that there's I don't know. I think there's going to be a really cool renaissance happening in front of our eyes.
It's an interesting perspective on Nashville. You're exactly right, though. It's a very magical place. I got here last night, did not know you were in town or anything, and now here we are.
Exactly.
Kind of on a whim. And stuff like that happens all the time here. That is the great part of being in Nashville. You never know where or who you're going to end up with, and just really cool to finally get to sit down with you. I'm glad we're doing it. So you're more on the rock side of music, and you have some really cool stuff. You were telling me that you're going to start kind of putting some, I guess, mixing some country in with it coming up soon.
Yeah, just being born and raised out of Georgia, about 40 minutes outside of Atlanta in a little place called Hiram. I was always enthralled with bands like Blackberry Smoke and Leonard Skinner and guys like that. Black Crowes are one of my biggest heroes, and they're from Marietta, which is like the town over. It's where my dad grew up. They went to high school together for like a year. Yeah, at Walton. But I always wanted to blend in the southern rock music with the alternative. And I tried it once with a song called Right on Time back in 2021, and that was kind of the beginning of it. And just within recent years, the popularity of bands like Dexter and the Moonrocks, Treaty Oak Revival, Red Clay Strays, bands, ironically, country music is creating some of the best bands out there, better than rock in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think now it's just the right time and the right place just to throw that out there. And there's an audience that obviously wants to hear that stuff. So finding that middle ground of creating something in an authentic way without being like one of those dudes that sticks their finger up and goes, all right, commercially this is where it's going right now, let's make music. I wanted to blend it and just kind of add slide guitar pedal steel here, but I'm not singing it in a fake accent or anything like that. I'm still going to sound the same way, just kind of incorporate the influences that I grew up with being from the South.
Right. Yeah, well, I think people appreciate authenticity. You can always tell when somebody's not being authentic.
Yeah, they can smell it a mile away.
Oh yeah. So I'm really excited to get to see that and how that progresses for you, and help in any way that I can. And
absolutely,
I'm all about real authentic country, as you know.
Well, you actually just helped me out in a way without you even knowing. 2 days ago I saw one of your videos and you were talking about "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh yeah.
And you were talking about the parallels between that and Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking about that. I was like, man, that's so cool. So yesterday I had a write with a buddy of mine named Brad Wagner, and we were sitting there building up a song, and I wanted a cool. I had an idea, but I wanted it to have like a cooler back story behind it.
Yeah.
So it was really about like the parallels of the father and the son. And me being a huge history buff, I love Greek mythology, I love all that. So I was like, okay, what's one of the most notorious father and son stories in Greek mythology? And it's Icarus.
Yeah.
You know, the guy who flew too close to the sun. So I inadvertently, because of you might have to get a songwriter credit on this
There
one.
we go.
But yeah, that really was like, it just opened up a whole new world of creativity because of that video. I was like, dude, I love Greek mythology. I love this stuff. Like, why can't I meld it together? Exactly how you were talking about, Oh Brother. I was like,
cool.
That's awesome. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah,
That worked.
I'm glad I could help, even if I didn't know I was helping. Yeah.
It worked.
I can't wait to hear the finished product. You're gonna have to send it to me as soon as
Yeah, I
it's done.
absolutely will. Yeah, we just I've got a couple of harmonies I want to add to it, but it's pretty much done. I'm very, very happy with it. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Well,
the inspiration's all on you, man.
That's cool. I'll take it. Speaking of people helping you out, I was watching Theo Vaughn's podcast a while back,
man.
and they were talking about you.
Oh man, Theo's a great dude. I met him back 2022, I think, at, ironically enough, John Rich's house.
Oh yeah.
And they were doing I think they were doing a thing for Daily Wire. So it was like Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and all these people. And Theo came with Jimmy John, the sandwich dude. And I've known Jimmy John for a couple of years just from working with my dad and doing private shows. Great dude, upstanding guy. But yeah, I met Theo, and man, we hit it off. He's just exactly how he is on his podcast and his stand-up. That's how he is. Like, he's just he's always thinking of something funny. He's always firing on all cylinders. Just a naturally funny but genuine dude.
Yeah.
So when I got a text from, I think, one of the dudes at Ray's Rowdy one night, and I was laying in bed about to go to sleep, and they're like, dude, Theo's talking about you with Post Malone. And I was like, oh God, I know what's coming. He's like an older brother. He's gonna rag me. And I guess because I grew out my beard similar to what I'm doing right now, and there was a picture of a toddler in a Post Malone outfit, and he's like, oh, you look just like, that looks like Tristan Tritt. And I was like, well, free advertisement, I'll take it. All press is good press at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he seems like I haven't met
love
Theo
him to
yet,
death,
but
man. I love him.
Seems like a good guy, and that was a good plug too. I was happy to see him do that because I really appreciate the music that you have now. I know we talked about you getting in the country space, but what you have going on now is really, really cool and unique, and I appreciate that. You know, there are a lot of legacy children, as you folks are called, that, you know.
I'll say the right phrase. It's Nepo baby.
Oh, Nepo baby. There are a lot of people who, like Hank Jr. in his younger days, was kind of forced to do what his dad was doing. Yeah. And so to see you going in your own direction and doing your own thing, which is what Hank Jr. did when he really blew up.
Absolutely.
It's refreshing to see you doing that, and I appreciate you as an artist going your own way. And I'm sure you get your share of naysayers, as most people do who come from a lineage of Travis Tritt's son. I'm sure you get that. But I just want to say, from me, I appreciate what you're doing, and I know a lot of people do.
I appreciate that a lot, man. And that, you know, a lot of it I brought on myself because, you know, I got started in 2020 back when the whole world shut down because of COVID. But thank God I was in a pretty open state. I was in Georgia, so the bars and open mics were still out there, and I just moved back from California because I was doing like an internship working for Sublime with Rome and the Dirty Heads and all these guys, working for their manager. Yeah. And I came back to Georgia, and I'd done everything up in that point that I wanted to in the music industry, from working as a production assistant for 2 years. Went to audio engineering school out in Arizona, worked for a recording studio, worked for, interned for management, everything except the most fun part. And when I started playing open mics and, getting my feel for playing live, almost immediately, as soon as I brought a band in or I had a guitar player with me when we were doing like full-time shows, there was kind of that expectation. And granted, I brought it on myself, I've got the long hair and all that stuff, and I swear if I shave this beard off and get a goatee, my dad's going to send me a cease and desist. I bring it on myself. But the expectation was kind of there. It was never like aggressive or anything. But I just had to kind of find my way to be like, okay, no, this is what I sound like. Because we have different voices, and like,
right.
There's similarities probably in the way we move and even the way I look, but like, he grew up listening to certain artists, and I grew up listening to certain artists, and like things grab him in a certain way that it grabs me. So just it's gonna come out no matter what you try and do. It's like music for most artists, if they're actually like in love with it and they're not doing it for the wrong reasons, it's supposed to be like a fingerprint. It's individual. It's all based on your your past experiences. It's based off of your highs and lows in life.
Right.
And whether you like it or not, it's going to come out in an individual way.
Right.
And it's supposed to be that way. And that's kind of what my frustration is with Nashville. I love coming out here and working with people because, like I said before, it's such a melting pot of people from Texas, people from New York, people from Pennsylvania, all over, people from different countries. Really, really talented cats. But I've seen too many times at this point people who come to this city with a really authentic sound. I mean, really authentic. You can pick them out of a crowd of 1,000 people. They just really have it. And a couple years later, I come and see them again, and they sound exactly like everyone else. And it breaks my heart in a way. It's like, yeah, you may be getting more commercial success, and a part of it is a business. I understand that. If you're trying to make this your life, you got bills to pay.
Right.
That makes sense. I have a lot of mercy in that regard. But at the same time, if people are looking at longevity over just the short-term success that people have now in this digital age of TikTok going viral or YouTube videos or anything like that, the only way to create longevity is to create your own sound that sticks out from the rest. You want to create a soundtrack to people's lives, and you want to create that in a way that is only your sound. There's a reason why my dad's able to tour, almost 40 years into it.
Right.
There's a reason why Hank Williams Jr. can still tour. There's a reason why all these cats can still do that, because they created this authentic sound that it's their voice. You can sound like them. There can be similarities, but there's only going to be one of those. And I'm seeing it more now with artists, which gives me hope, but I'm just hoping that more and more, especially younger artists that are moving out to Nashville, because you got 110 people moving out here a day.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people, but that leaves, statistically, there's got to be at least a couple that are really going to have that individuality and that fingerprint I talked about. So I'm just hoping we can see more of it. And in regards to being Travis Tritt's son, he never pushed anything on me.
Yeah.
He never did. He always allowed me to kind of find things out on my own, and that's where I fell in love with Motorhead and Ozzy Osbourne and Rob Zombie and Tool and, all these really obscure things that, my dad didn't know anything about, really.
Yeah.
But he let me loose, and we found middle ground through the Southern rock stuff. He's huge into Boston, got me really into Boston, got me really big into the Eagles, obviously, and we found middle ground there. And the older I get now, I just finished reading last week Waylon Jennings' autobiography.
Great one.
Fantastic. And reading and Waylon talking about my own father was like, it made me choke up.
Yeah.
Because it was like seeing the legacies by, people who really set the way for outlaw country and who set the way for country music in general and music in general. I mean, good God, the amount of influence that Waylon Jennings and Chris Christopherson and Johnny Cash and, Willie all did. It's incredible. And just hearing my dad's name behind that made me fall in love with their music even more, because I was like, okay, they looked up, they revered him because he was setting his own path as the newer country artist of that day. And I just hope that one day I can have the same respect from those that I look up to from my past, where they can look at me and be like, he's setting his own path too.
Right.
He didn't compromise. He didn't try to be like everyone else. And that, to me, that's where the inspiration comes from.
One thing I've always just very much appreciated about your dad and guys like Marty Stewart too, is, the 90s, it really seemed like, and Alan Jackson, a lot of the artists were kind of in their own head, and their labels were pushing them this way and the other. And a lot of those older artists, like Fair & Young is a great example, felt like the town turned their back on them,
Yeah.
And I feel like people like your dad and Marty and Alan, they showed their appreciation to the people like Waylon and George Jones and all of these older artists, and kind of took them along the journey with them, and just had that deep appreciation for them. And did stuff together.
Yeah.
You know, and let them know, like Alan Jackson, Good Year for the Roses.
Yeah.
Your dad did a bunch of stuff with Waylon, Where Corn Don't Grow. That one of my favorite videos of all time is your dad, Waylon, Steve Wariner, and Joe Diffie doing Where Corn Don't Grow.
Incredible.
And that's, I think, the only time I've ever seen, and I've watched a lot of Waylon, that's the only time I've ever seen him get choked up. It's when he sings about his dad, because Waylon really cared about his dad.
Absolutely did.
And they both did. Your dad and Waylon both did that song, knocked it out of the park. But your dad appreciates the history, and not all artists do. And you appreciate the history. And I think in order to be successful in any business, not just country music, any business, is you need to know where it came from.
Absolutely. And that was ingrained into my head as a kid. I've always been a huge history buff. I've always loved artists' autobiographies, biographies, just learning about it. But it does blow my mind nowadays how there's so many artists who really don't understand the beginnings of country music or rock and roll or hip hop or anything like that, or understand the milestones that these people laid out before them. When you understand the past, you can really see not only what they had to struggle through to get it to where it is now, but also the patterns that are bound to repeat themselves. Yes. Whether it's record labels taking advantage of the artist, or people becoming too much of the same within an area and sounding the same.
Yeah, you were saying that earlier, and that's exactly right. When you were saying that, I was thinking, country music, at least the Nashville labels and stuff, have always been kind of narrow-minded.
Yeah.
So like the 50s, Hank Williams, honky-tonk type music. Everybody's putting out honky-tonk. Then the Nashville sound comes along. You got to walk that line of the Nashville sound if you want to be on the radio.
Right.
Then Waylon and them come on, they're like, heck with that. And they make outlaw. Well, now everybody's falling in and trying to be an outlaw. And it goes all the way up to bro country. Everybody's got to fall in there. It's very narrow-sided. Like, they only see one way. And so you saying that about branching out and doing your own thing, that's true. That's what gives people like you, your dad, Waylon Jennings, longevity, as where the others who just mix in. What are they creating that's going to be remembered when those trends fall off?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with what are they creating, because the problem is, and I'm not dogging labels, because I think to a degree they are important, and they're they do give a lot of opportunity, but the reality is you have a lot of non-creative people dictating what creative people should do, and that gets problematic.
Right.
I don't know anything about home restoration, so if I walked in and I start pretending like I'm some inspector or an electrician and I'm telling you what to do, and I have zero concept of how any of that works, you're going to look at me kind of cattywampus and be like, what do you mean? Like, my ideas are probably not going to be that good. But the labels have had a history, and the industry as a whole, not just the labels, but a lot of people, of thinking that they know what's better. And I dealt with this in my own personal life with some people I hired a couple months back, where it wasn't anything bad, but they had these concepts in their head of what they think dictates success.
Right.
And I did the opposite. A little bit of that Travis was in me, where it was like, kiss my ass, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And it ended up being extremely successful for what I was expecting. And it was basically just not listening to them and going with my heart and going with like what felt right. And that's the reality. Like, if you ever listen to the song Outlaws Like Us, I think it's Waylon's line, I don't have a crystal ball to tell what lies ahead, but I played my way, though some folks say country rock is dead. Yeah. That applies to so many different things, though. Yeah. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows what's ahead. For an artist, if you don't have the integrity to just say, screw it, and release something, even if it's a massive failure, even no one hears it, at least you can say, I did my job as a creator and I got it out there. And I hope to God that more people see that and understand that if you have that God-given gift to tell a story, to sing, to write music, to play an instrument, your individuality and your ability to give it life through your perspective and your own creative process is it's on your own responsibility. No matter what these people say to you, you can either listen to them or you can follow your heart and actually, stick to your guns. And as cliche as that sounds, that's really where the magic starts to happen. When you see artists throughout history disregard what the industry says and just they were moderately successful, and then once they started doubling down on being themselves, you get something like a Willie Nelson, who moved to Nashville originally and was trying to be a songwriter, goes to Austin, Texas, becomes Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
It's a tale as old as time, and there's plenty of stories of that in Nashville, but I love talking about the history again, those cycles, those patterns of people really finding themselves. It's the hero's journey, you know? Something happens, and then they go back, and then they recalibrate, and then they come back better than ever. That's the whole point of this. Yeah. To grow.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And now there's something totally different thrown in the mix, and there's varied opinions on it, but social media has allowed... I usually joke and say you can drive down Music Row and all the buildings are shaking because the executives don't know what to do about this social media thing.
Absolutely.
Because people are making careers with no backing.
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
You come out of nowhere, but you have such an authentic way of doing things, and I mean, man, you educated me on a bunch of stuff, and just you can see the twinkle in your eyes of how much you enjoy talking and learning about country music history and music history, and that kind of stuff. You can't fake that, and that's what social media has given a voice to people like you, people like me, who just want to do something on their own. And if people enjoy it, they're going to come. Build it, and they will come. And you're a perfect example of that. And I'm thankful that people like you exist, man.
Well, I appreciate that. It's just so good, though, that a lot of people are bitter about social media. They're like, Bailey Zimmerman shouldn't be where he's at. He just had numbers on social media, whatever. I think that if you have social media, it's not going to lie. Sure, you can buy followers, but you're not going to get anywhere with that. If you organically grow your social media presence, it's real people who want to hear what you're doing. That is a grassroots fan base that you can't build out of a building on Music Row.
No.
And that, I think that scares a lot of people. And I think the people that it does scare is the older folks who just don't know how to utilize it. But for folks like you and me, it's just really cool because we just hit 900,000 people across all platforms.
Congratulations, man.
When I started, Tristan, I thought I was a weirdo because I liked country music history. And so I'd get on there and suddenly I have 1,000. I'm like, well, there's 1,000 like-minded people.
Yeah.
And now it's 900,000. I'm like, holy cow, there's a lot of people who love country music history.
Absolutely.
And so it's really cool to see people like you build an audience of folks who just appreciate your art, and it's nothing to do with money or promotions or I'll do this for you if you do this. You and I put out a video because we love it, or a song because we love it, and we just expect it to find the right people, and it does, and it's so rewarding when it does. So it's cool. I sit down with a lot of older folks because of the history. I don't get to sit around with a lot of younger people. I'm going to start doing it more. So I'm just excited to get to sit down with you and talk about that, because most people don't understand it, but I know for you do. You understand that you're able to reach those people and just how important it is.
Well, it's a incredible money saver too, because it's the ultimate litmus test. If I want to test out like a couple of seconds of a song that I haven't released yet, I can do that, and based off the reaction, you can either go, okay, I'm going to go through with this, or like if people are engaging with it or not. Like even if you're trying to be like a business person about it, a businessman, and just be like, okay, well, like if this has got a pretty decent reaction, that probably tells me, hey, I need to go through with this and double down on the production and get it out there. If not, then probably put it on the back burner for a while and work on something else. Why in God's name you wouldn't want to utilize something like that as opposed to just releasing it the old school way and then finding out after you've got 10,000 hard copies that they're just sitting in a warehouse because they're not going to sell? I mean, there's a lot of good and bad with anything, and especially right now we're moving so it's everything's so exponential. You know what I mean? 1 year is like 5 years in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's moving so quick, especially in the music industry. It's almost like, I tell people all the time, it's like that scene in Harry Potter where all the stairs are constantly moving. As soon as you're getting up there, that thing's turning around the second, someone looks around and they're like, I got it figured out. No, you don't. No one does.
Yeah.
But at least with social media, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you have the opportunity to reach out to people, and there's 8 billion plus people on this planet. These subcategories and these real niche markets that originally would be like, dude, no one's gonna find old school country music, history things, and of any of importance. Bull. They're gonna find it, and if that's something they enjoy and they share it to people, more and more people are gonna enjoy it, and that's all created because of social media. So that's the good part of it. The bad part is we live in a world of constant comparison. If you're not careful about it, if you don't have a strong enough mind, you can really dig yourself into a deeper hole of like, oh God, well, I'm doing this, I'm just getting started, and so-and-so's over here in their career, and why am I not selling out this place? Why am I not signed to a record label or anything like that?
Yeah.
And that's not the point.
Yeah.
You really have to scale back, and like I've been for the last month or so, since January, I got a little journal with me, and every morning I do my best to like write out the things that I'm thankful for. It's almost like a prayer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just be like, dude, I'm thankful for the roof over my head, the air conditioning, the fact that I got 2 working feet. And it really makes you think in retrospect of how good you have it, even though you're looking at someone who's making $10 million, selling out arenas and stadiums that you knew 5 years ago. I'm happy for those folks. I truly am. And I'm not just saying that as like someone who's like, a bootlicker or something. It's like I'm legitimately happy to see those people succeed, because if they can succeed, I can succeed.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't look at it from a famine mentality. And that's something too with like when you come out to cities like here. I'm not based out of Nashville. I'm not a Nashville artist. I'm based out of Georgia, but I come out of here and I work with a lot of folks. My band's based out of here, so I'm spending enough time to be a part-time resident of this city. The one thing I can see quite a bit that irritates me is this famine mentality, where everyone's trying to one-up you. And like, I'll walk into bars and all that stuff all the time, and people kind of cold shoulder me or don't talk anything until they somehow find out who I am.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you want to have a conversation with me. It's like, dude, I don't care if you're a welder or the head of Warner Brothers Music. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're a genuine person, I get along with you. Let's have a conversation.
Right.
Because these people out here, man, they're such opportunists sometimes. And I say these people, not trying to put everyone in a category, but just the bad side of living in entertainment towns or being in entertainment towns is kind of that toxic mentality they have of not wanting to share the growth with other people. It's just it's disheartening.
Yeah.
And it turns you off from the music if you're not careful. And social media is a big, byproduct of that in a way.
Yeah. I think, individuality is a big thing, and positivity, like you said, it is a great thing, because that's exhausting. If you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody else, that's exhausting. And if you're comparing yourself to somebody else, then in a way you're trying to be like that person, and then you don't have your own individuality. And so that's a great point. I think that's very important to have that kind of an attitude, because there's always going to be people in a position that you wish you could be in.
Sure.
And instead of being jealous of that person, I think the best thing you can do is make friends with that person. Some of the best advice I ever got was hang out with people who you want to be like.
Yeah.
And so making friends with those kind of people is the thing to do, and not. I have seen that myself also of folks who are bitter because somebody, whole friendships, families ruined because of that.
Absolutely.
Because of jealousy, and
it's a cancer, man.
Yeah.
And it's just something that, like, if you're conscious of it, I mean, we're all human. You're always gonna have like those thoughts that come in, and you're like, why am I not in that position? Or something.
Right.
It's like a weed. You got to pull that thing out, man. You got to pull it out, and you got to put yourself in a positive mindset where, exactly what you're saying, become friends with those people, become inspired by them. Look at that and be like, I can do that too, and not, why does he have it or she have it and I don't? It's not supposed to work that way, and especially in music where it's a subjective art. There's no statistics really. I mean, unless you're basing off of sales or something like that. One person can love an artist and another person can absolutely hate them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all subjective. So that being said, there's so much room to, learn from other people. Say, hey, I may not agree with what he or she thinks on this thing, but like we can agree on music, or we're fans of a certain band or a group. It's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. This whole polarized world that we live in now it's so locked in for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think another important thing is to separate yourself sometimes from it. sometimes, like, I know me, I'm always thinking of what to do next and all this. Sometimes you just got to get away from it and unload. And we were just talking about you going quail hunting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What else does Tristan Tritt like to do on his unwinding time?
So I always tell people I was, Georgia birthed me, but Central Florida raised me. Mm-hmm. So all my best friends in the world, a lot of them that actually moved up here, but all my best memories I made in Central Florida, and it was everything from, hog hunting, doing it with dogs, gator hunting, going on airboats, gigging, being outdoors, really just the simple things in life. Like, I grew up, or the last 4.5 years I've been playing in mostly bars and stuff, so I could care less about the bars and the club scene. Being around a campfire, drinking beers with your buddies, listening to music like that, that's how I separate myself and get back to the reality of how things actually are. Those are the actual people, and most of my friends are blue-collar workers. Most of my friends are linemen and welders and people like that, just salt-of-the-earth folks that, like, have no problem calling me out if my britches get too big. You know what I mean? I'm 5'9", but, like, they'll knock me down a peg or two.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons, too, why I come out here and, when I come to Nashville, it's not to party, it's not to get caught up in the Broadway scene, it's to work. Yeah. And which is a good mentality to have, because I don't get kind of lost into what Nashville can do for some people, which can suck you in, and basically a couple years go by and you haven't done what you're supposed to do. But going back to the South and going back to Georgia and going back to, Leesburg, Florida and places like that, it makes me understand and connect with the lyrics that I write, especially with, like, I've got a new song coming out March 7th called Stop the Ride, and it's a lot of the realism of being on the road and the self-doubt and the kind of melancholy everyone comes to grips with when they're first getting on the road and being gone from their family and understanding what the actual sacrifices take. Right. So, yeah, it's just, I wouldn't have been able to write that song if it weren't for the fact that I actually lived it and was around people that, like, could relate to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? There was a sense of, like, understanding behind people who actually, like, are waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day and busting their ass to pay for their family. Like, it's a real world that they live in. It's not this facade that a lot of writers nowadays are just trying to write to. They're not actually writing about, you know what I mean? It's like, you can tell it's not, you haven't been around those kind of cats in a long time, have you? Like, those talking about those writers, like, I
think it was Tyler Childers who said something along those lines of why would I want to move to a city to write about Appalachia or whatever.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious. But I mean, everyone's gonna do what they're gonna do. But for me personally, I much prefer to write songs that are real and talking about, like, one of my favorite things to do, if you've seen my videos, I do a lot of, like, self-deprecating humor. I love that, mainly because the way my family was always raised. Like, if someone does something stupid or you fall down, steps or anything, they're gonna make fun of you. So you might as well make fun of yourself before anyone else can. And that's always how I've been. So a lot of my music has been, like, tongue-in-cheek, either making fun of myself or, like, making fun of the things I see. But it's always I try to be authentic with it. So with Stop the Ride, that's definitely the route I went down, where it's a little bit more of a serious tone, but I'm talking about, like, what I'm going through and the insecurities that I'm feeling, being 700 miles away from home in a minivan with all my guys going, what the hell am I doing? And, you're hoping to God that this show is going to be good, but it's the reality of it, and it's what most people, when they're getting into the music business, they don't know about until they're in it. Right. You know what I mean? It's easy to hear the stories, but when you're actually in it, you're like, oh man, like, this is not as fun as it seems at first, but then you realize how special the journey is. Yeah. And that changes the whole thing. You're like, oh, this is the thing that people romanticize about later on in life. Yeah. So it's fun.
You said gigging. You talking about gigging frogs?
Yep. We do frogs and alligator gar.
Yeah.
Stuff, man.
You got to come down to South Louisiana. We got some frogs.
Oh, don't tempt me with a good time, man. Don't tempt me with a good time. I'd love to do that. I'll hold you to that invite.
Oh, we got plenty of them. Don't worry about that. We got some big. That's one of my favorite pastimes, is going out and gigging some frogs, fishing. But yeah, I appreciate that about you, that you have that side of your life, that you go out and you do the things that. And you're exactly right. There are folks who are sitting in a building right across the road here trying to write a song about gigging frogs, and they've never gigged a frog in their life. Right. So the authenticity, I think, and in what I've listened to of yours, The rock stuff, you can tell you're being authentic in your songwriting and what you're singing. And I'm super excited to get the more country stuff. That's going to be a lot of fun.
The main reason too to incorporate the country into it is, I mean, truly, if you're talking about the best storytellers, in my opinion, it's got to be the country writers. I mean, even the Rolling Stones said that about.
Who's your favorite?
Songwriter wise, love Steve Earle.
Oh yeah,
love Steve Earle. I think he's one of the most prolific writers of all time. Waylon was obviously a massive influence on me. Johnny Cash was a massive influence on me, and even nowadays, Colter Wall, I mean, that guy can paint such a picture, and I swear to God, he's 150 years old. Like, that dude lived in the frontier days or something.
I've never been more shocked than the first time I saw Colter Wall sing.
Same. And they're like, yeah, at the time, I think they were like, yeah, he's like 24. And I was like, what?
And he looks 14.
Exactly.
He had the little scruffy hair on his face.
Yeah.
I think it was Western AF or something.
Yeah.
That was, the first time I saw that, I was like, there's no way.
You're talking about talk the talk, walk the walk. Like, that guy's out there being an actual cowpuncher. Like,
yeah, he's on the ranch.
Exactly. And that, you can't fake that. And even
turned down Rogan.
Yeah, exactly. Turned down Rogan and was apparently in Austin when he did so.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. So it's, but that's the kind of authenticity I get a kick out of. And even being around cats, like, I've had the privilege of being around guys like Co Wetzel and stuff like that a couple of times, and he's as authentic as it gets too, and he's one of the last of the real outlaws.
Yeah.
That guy does not care. Like, he's so locked in on his sound, and in a lot of ways, the Texas scene has really inspired me because of that. Because even with guys like Parker McCollum, who's a little bit on the more ballad side, there's still that authenticity, which I think is the theme of this whole episode. Is just, that's something that means so much to me, and Texas is a fantastic place for that.
Yeah, Texas is like its own world.
It really is.
Completely.
It really is. And they are proud people, man. I would not want to be on their bad side. Yeah,
they don't need, I mean, you go to places like the Continental Club or the Broken Spoke in Austin, these artists don't need Nashville. They don't need anybody. They'll pack those places out in Texas, and people love them, and I appreciate them. The guys, like, the first person that I had a live sit down podcast with was Dale Watson, and keeping honky tonk alive. You know, I appreciate those folks so much. And
well, Texas has that. It reminds me of what I've read of how Nashville used to be back in the 60s and 70s, when Nashville was kind of on the back burner, especially with labels. If you weren't in Los Angeles and you weren't in New York, if you were a Nashville artist, they didn't really take you seriously. So they really had this sense of independence back in the day that was so important for their sustainability. And with Nashville being one of the largest cities, growing and for music, it's become a mecca of it. It's fantastic, but it's lost a little bit of its identity of being that frontier that it used to be. You know what I mean? That stronghold. It was the Alamo.
I think it just seems like there's not the same camaraderie.
Right.
That it used to be. You know, it used to be a family. It really was, you know?
Yeah.
It was a family. People depending on each other and helping each other. And now it seems more like nobody wants to help each other. Everybody's just trying to climb their own ladder instead of putting a hand down and helping somebody else up. And not everywhere. There are great people in this town, but it just doesn't seem like, you know, what you hear about from back in the day.
Well, it's one of the quickest ways to kill creativity is by turning it into like a corporate setting where you're basically you're sabotaging the person next to you just to get ahead. It's like it took me a long time to really figure out the right way to come out of here or come to Nashville and start working with the right people. But once you do find that, if you're lucky enough to find that group, whether it's songwriters, producers, musicians, stick with those cats, man. Because same thing I told my band, it's like, you have an option because we're hitting the road hard in 2025, and I'm very fortunate for it. But I told them, I'm like, listen, if you want to hit Broadway and you want to do that and you want to sleep in the comfort of your own bed every night, by all means do it. I will not blame you one bit. But if you want to come out with me and you want to struggle and you want to put risk, I'm going to put you in the position where you can grow with me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's just my name, you're still with me, and I can't pull these shows off if you're not on the stage sharing it with me and playing this music as well. So having that camaraderie and that ability to look at your bandmates like brothers when you're out there, and you got to get along because you're stuck in a van with each other for 90% of the day, then the other 5% you're playing the show, and then the last 5% you're sleeping. Like, it's all, it's very compact. So if you don't have that camaraderie and that shared goal, it's almost impossible to get ahead with this. And that sabotage mentality is just so, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Because Nashville, if one thing, it's basically it's a big city, small town.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're in it for a while, everyone knows everyone somehow.
Yeah.
So if word gets around that you're kind of this shady cat that basically throws anyone under the bus as soon as they get an opportunity to succeed for themselves or push themselves ahead, word's going to catch around. And sometimes those kind of people get caught out, and they rightfully so get shunned. But just as fast as this place is growing, my fear is that it's going to continue to get in that kind of overly competitive state where it's like, dude, that's how you destroy the creativity, man.
Right.
Work with cats. Work with people, man.
Have you ever watched Heart-Worn Highways?
I haven't.
You would love it because it's I say a documentary, but really what it is a compilation of like home videos.
Sure.
And a big part of it is at Guy Clark's house. Mm-hmm. And Guy Clark's house was a place where folks would get together and write. So it would be Guy Clark, Steve Earle, Rodney Crowell, and 4 or 5 other people sitting in a circle just playing their songs. And to me, that's what places like this should be. There should be those places of, hey, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but let's play some music and write some stuff.
Absolutely.
That's where the best songs came from. You should check that out, though. It's a Heart-Worn Highway.
I will 100% check that out because I love hearing those old school stories. And exactly, all those, especially back in the 70s, I forget whose house it was. It was some woman that I think was a waitress out here, but like Waylon and
shoot, what's her name?
Wilkins. Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Yep.
And all these cats would go in there and just switch out songs and be like, hey man, I wrote this one, here's this, and like you got all these guys that are just killers sitting in a room.
Yeah.
Each hit maker's on their own right, but they had that camaraderie like you were talking about. That, I mean, you can't fake that, and that's how the best stuff gets made.
Yeah, and Tootsie's was a place like that back in the day.
Absolutely.
To walk out of the Ryman and go right there, and Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson and all these people are there. Yeah, we need to find that spot or make that spot in Nashville.
Absolutely. I think you hit it on the second part. Make that spot.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at this point, it brings me a lot of joy seeing folks like you, independent creators, because y'all are really the movers and shakers that are making these environments where people can come to, even if it's a digital page.
Yeah.
People who didn't really, who may not have thought that they were big country music fans or didn't know about guys like Waylon or Willie or any of these dudes. I mean, the list goes on. Because of you could have inspired hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of people to, find their path in either a genre that they love or becoming creators themselves. And people like you who are making those realms, it's unbelievably important right now, especially with like how saturated things are becoming in the real world. There's the fact that you can be sitting in the middle of, Des Moines, Iowa, and find your page and be just baptized in all this knowledge of great artists from the past, great songwriters from the past. That really can change the game for someone's life. That can change them on a dime. And that kind of stuff, to me, what you do, what so many other content creators do, that really shows a level of importance to me that I didn't think was possible, and I really, really revere what you guys do. It's incredible. I appreciate
it. It's been very rewarding last night, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story. I don't think he would, but an artist reached out to me last night, and I just about had tears in my eyes. You never think when you make a video that it's going to just have a big impact. Like you saying, you wrote a song after watching one of my videos. Yeah. But he messaged me last night, and he said, you mentioned me in a video, and a couple years ago, his daughter passed away, 4 months old, from SIDS. And he said, since then, I haven't touched my guitar. Just hadn't been able to. But about 5 or 6 people sent him that video where I had mentioned him. He said, I'm going to pick my guitar up again and start writing. And I'm like, I'm getting chills talking about it.
You have no clue what kind of impact that can do to people.
And I'm sure you have some stories like that just with music. And
sure.
it's incredible when you create. So I think people are put here. I don't want to get off on a deep dive on society and where I think it should be, but I think people are created to create.
Absolutely.
I believe what the Bible says, we're created in God's image, and I believe that means that He created us. We're here to create things. And so when you create something and it makes an impact like that, there's not an amount of money in this world you could put on that.
Yeah.
At all.
And there's a reason why it's one of the most primal things that we still do. I mean, other than like being with your boys around a campfire, music is one of the. I mean, they're saying that it was there before language. You know, it's just it's a in unison way of being together, and whether it's chanting or singing the lyrics of your favorite artist. Like, I mean, think about how a concert makes people feel. You got people from all different walks of life, all different political perspectives, all different everything.
Yeah, all in one building.
All in one building, in agreement that we are all gonna enjoy this one moment for 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is. And that is magical, man. And that's what the world needs more than ever. With how divided we are, it really upsets me when people get so caught up in the weeds of like, oh, it's left versus right, it's white versus black, it's this, it's that. It's like, dude, you gotta come back to the common ground of just being a person. Because if I'm listening to Pearl Jam and then Joe Schmo, who I've never met before, is vibing along to Pearl Jam with me, guess what? We just got something in common. I don't give a shit about anything from his past. There's our common ground right there, and we can be in agreement for the next minute and a half of this song. And that can be the end of our story, meeting each other. But guess what? That just brought us all together. That is a powerful thing, man. And that's one of the reasons I love music so much, is because, like, whenever I was at my lowest, whenever I had these peaks and valleys in my life, whether it was, losing family members, losing friends, breakups, heartaches, all that stuff, very human occurrences that happen to everyone. Music was a way to, either by listening to it, take myself out of it and do it in a non-destructive way. It wasn't like you were getting drunk or doing drugs or anything like that. It was a very, wholesome, holistic way of getting out of your bad headspace and bringing you back to something, whether it's nostalgia or just relating to the lyrics. And another way, as a creator, writing those songs was an outlet for me of getting out the frustrations and the anger and the angst in, once again, a way that wasn't destructive. It was actually a way that was beneficial, and it was creating as opposed to destroying. And learning that early on, thank God I did. Because, I mean, I could have easily gone down a path where my habits would have destroyed me. I was never, like, anything serious, but, like, when you're young, you make a lot of mistakes. And I'm 25 years old, I'm still making a lot of mistakes. But thankfully, I'm surrounded by mostly older friends who I can look at their mistakes and their past choices and be like, okay, I don't want to do it that way. But also, just from me learning, touching the hot stove a couple of times, the best way for me to fix my problems and the best way for me to get it out in a therapeutic sense has always been to create. And it's always been going back to music. Music has always been that one thing that was there that got me through things. And it's the millions of people it's gotten through, that's true power. That's true magic, if you want to give that sense, Yeah. And that's, you can't replicate that in any other way but by creating.
Right.
And it's just, it's why music is the greatest conduit out there.
Yeah, I never really thought about, that concert setting being all of these different people, and when it gets aggravating, it gets exhausting, really. Whenever if I make something about Willie Nelson,
sure,
I have the far right who's like, you must be a liberal piece of crap because you're talking about Willie. And then I make something about Hank Jr. and the far left's like, you must be a conservative nut job talking about Hank Jr. I'm like, I love the music.
Literally.
Like, if you're far as right as they go, and you can honestly tell me you listened to Angel Flying Too Close to the Ground and felt nothing, I don't believe it.
Yeah. You just told me everything you know about. I need to know about you.
Yeah, so we just live in such a polarized place now.
Absolutely, and that was something too. Like, being a massive rock fan, politically, I'm more in the middle than anything, and I'm all for reason.
Yeah.
But I'm not naive to know that, like, I may not agree with a majority of my heroes if we were going to talk about politics, but guess what? I'm not an idiot that just only talks about politics. I can relate on anything else that you want to talk about. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are still my heroes, and just because they may have an opinion that I disagree with doesn't mean anything for me. I'm still a massive fan of you. I don't think anything less of you, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have discourse especially Americans. This is the whole reason this country was built, was the fact that we are supposed to have different ideas and then still come together and be like, hey, guess what? At the end of the day, whether you agree and I don't agree, let's agree to disagree. We're both brothers. That's it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I hope it gets back to that. You know, a few decades ago, not even a few decades ago, a decade ago, the election happens, whoever wins, and we move on, and you're not really thinking about it for a few years. Now it's just like it's become so many people's personality.
Right, but I think there's a fatigue in that now, where like beforehand, especially like back in 2016, where everything was politicized. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people don't want to see that. You want to see, if you're going to go see your favorite artist, whether they're on the right or the left, you don't want to hear about it. Yeah. You just play the songs. And I know that's a cliche term, play the damn song, but that's what we're all here for. Why would we highlight the things that are dividing us as opposed to just agree that, hey, we're here all to listen to music, have a good time, drink some drinks, be around people we enjoy. Let's do that. Let's not focus on, I think this way, you think that way, and keep bringing that up. Like that's a dumb way to go about it. And music, if you let it, it's the most uniting thing on planet Earth. And why in God's name you would want to politicize that and turn it immediately, split the crowd in two? That's stupid to me. Yeah, and there is money, obviously, in politicized music. Yeah, of course.
That happens. But I think that's what the power, I don't mean to be a conspiracy theorist here, but I think that's what the powers to be wants is, the separation of I hate you because you're this and you hate me because I'm this. That really benefits the people up here. It doesn't benefit us at all to hate each other for anything.
It's divide and conquer.
Exactly.
That's all it is. But if you're wise enough to catch on to that and realize that, like, when people get together, stuff happens. Good stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And when we're divided, everyone else can kind of, what you were just saying, it's very easy to push the agenda, whatever that is, typically for bad reasons or self-gain, when everyone else is worried about, they've got a sign in their yard that I don't agree with, so screw my neighbor. It's like, no, you're missing the point, dude. You're missing the point. Yeah. And it's so much based off this hair trigger that we have for emotions. And I mean, I can talk about that because I'm a Tritt. Emotions run high in my family. Yeah. But like I said, with music, there's an outlet for that. Yeah. I've got a pretty good way of putting those into a way that it translates to something that hopefully a lot of people can resonate with, as opposed to just going out and ranting about, oh, this is going on, that's going on. I'm not trying to divide people. I'm trying to bring them together. Yeah. And that's what we need more of. And I mean, it's cats like you that are out here that are really doing that in a way, because you're so authentic and you're so kind when you speak about these things, and you can tell, like I've said before, the love that you have for that. People resonate with that. And it's not about a politicization about it. It's just, hey, this person's passionate about what they're talking about. Let me just listen to it. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that, Tristan. Maybe in small ways you and I can bring folks together.
I think so.
But if there's enough of us,
absolutely, man.
I think that we can make the world, at least the music world, a better place.
One step at a time, man. One step at a time.
So I know you're a busy guy. I don't want to keep you too long, but what do you have coming out? What do you got going on that you want to?
We've got a bunch of shows. Y'all follow me on Tristan Tritt, Instagram, Tristan Tritt 13, TikTok, TristanTritt.com. New single coming out March 7th, Stop the Ride. Got way more music coming out for the rest of 2025. A lot of shows, so we're hitting the ground running, and yeah, it's going to be a good year. But Dylan, I can't thank you enough for having me out here last minute and meeting you for the first time. This has been fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. And for those of you, I know everybody who's listening is big country fans, but Tristan has some great rock music that I think you'll enjoy. Go check that out for sure. And go follow him on all platforms and support him as much as you can. And Tristan, we appreciate you for coming out.
Brother, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.